Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is politics reporter Sara Dorn. Sara, appreciate you coming on.
Hi, Brittany. Thank you as always for having me.
As we know, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley has officially launched a presidential bid. What do we know so far?
Haley was widely expected to announce her run at an event with supporters in Charleston tomorrow, and she released an announcement video today confirming her plans. And she is the first challenger to Trump for the GOP nomination.
She previously said that she wasn't going to challenge Trump, so why the change of heart here?
We don't really know the answer to that, why she has changed her mind. She said as recently as 2021, she would not run against Trump if he did seek another term. The two sort of have a shifting relationship. She backed Marco Rubio when he ran against Trump in 2016. But following the Capitol riots, Haley has been very critical of Trump's role, but she also later imposed his impeachment. So again, it's really unclear why she changed her mind, but there have been signs of her presidential aspirations, dating back to the time that she left the White House in 2018. She launched a 501c3 to promote her own policies on a broad range of issues. And then this is when the talk of her running for president really amplified in 2021 when she launched a PAC under that same name. So Trump, has not hit Haley hard and has sort of instead been focusing his attacks on DeSantis. And he did make a statement today, as did his MAGA Inc. PAC. So I can talk about that as well. But it doesn't seem that the two are really going after each other at this stage.
Yeah, let's talk about it. Does he have a nickname for her? What's his response been?
He does not have a nickname for her. And, some politicos have sort of said that could be an indicator that he doesn't view her as, a primary challenger. But he has said, on February 1st, the news came out that she was hosting this event in Charleston where she was expected to make a special announcement, as the invitation said, and a lot of people, speculated that was going to be her announcement for president. So following that news on February 1st, Trump did have some campaign events in the following days where he referred to Haley as overly ambitious. His PAC released a statement today calling her just another politician, which again, I feel like speaks to the idea that he does not see her as, real competition. But he today also commented to multiple outlets telling them that, she should follow her heart, but also noting that she once said he was the best president of her lifetime. And he's said that he spoke to her directly and told her that, if that's what she wanted to do, then she should absolutely run. And he welcomed the competition.
It's almost like if you don't get a nickname from Donald Trump, he doesn't view you as a serious contender. But what's her background? Can you walk us through from when she was the South Carolina governor to now?
So Haley was the first woman and person of color elected to be South Carolina's governor in 2010. She was 38 at the time and the youngest governor in the country. After leaving the governor's office at the end of 2017, Trump appointed her as ambassador to the United Nations. She served in that position for a year. And as I mentioned earlier, after leaving the Trump administration, she formed a new policy group called Stand Up for America that promoted her policy stances across a broad range of issues. And she later founded a PAC in 2021 under that name. A typical prerequisite to running for president. She also authored a book, and she served on the board of directors at Boeing as well, which, garnered a bit of criticism, but that's seems to be well in the past at this point, though I'm sure if she continues to run and becomes a credible challenger to Trump, it will come up again.
She really skyrocketed to political fame when she served on the Trump administration. But what type of Republican is she? Is she more of a MAGA Republican, a moderate, somewhere in between?
I certainly wouldn't describe her as a MAGA Republican. During the 2016 presidential campaign, she backed Marco Rubio, and she was affiliated with the Never Trumpers at one point. In terms of policy, it's really hard to pin her down as a conservative or a moderate. She's been referred to as both. Obviously, her alignment with Trump suggests she has conservative leanings, and she was very critical, especially on in terms of her worldviews and foreign policy. She was very critical of the governments of Russia, Iran, and Syria. She was a staunch defender of the U.S.'s support of Israel, and as governor, she signed legislation opposing the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. And she also advocated for moving the U.S. embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So again, in terms of foreign policy and worldview, I would say she's more considered on the conservative side. However, as governor, she opposed legislation that would require transgender individuals to use restrooms affiliated with the gender that they were assigned at birth. She signed a bill to remove the Confederate flag from State House grounds. That was following the mass shooting at the church in Charleston that was carried out by a white supremacist in 2015. However, she has described herself as pro-life, and abortion rights organizations have already criticized her campaign today. So
what is the other response to her campaign? Obviously, we know Trump had a lukewarm response, no nicknames, no really serious punches, but how is she polling? How have other Republicans responded to her announcement?
So I saw today that Tim Scott, he is a senator from South Carolina who is also said to be considering a presidential run and is launching a listening tour later this week throughout South Carolina, that, again, is being seen as a testing ground for how he's perceived by the public. He did not comment on Haley's run when asked about it by a reporter. However, she is polling pretty low behind, Trump and DeSantis and Pence. She's seems to be polling at number 4 in most surveys that we're seeing at 3%. And that's according to a recent poll by Morning Consult. And I've seen numbers as low as 1% as well.
Yeah, that's not too promising, but how is Trump polling? What about other GOP contenders? Who are they and how are they polling as well?
So Trump and DeSantis are really neck and neck. I mentioned Tim Scott a few minutes ago. He is a South Carolina senator who has been making key hires for a super PAC in support of his political ambitions. We have Mike Pence, who is also in the mix. He has been touring the country promoting his book, which, again, as I mentioned previously, is sort of a prerequisite to if you are running for president, which brings me to Mike Pompeo, who also has a new book out and, has made a number of appearances about that and has been, non-committal when it comes to whether or not he's running for president. I think he said in January he would decide in the next handful of months. And then we have some other candidates, Asa Hutchinson, who was the governor of Arkansas until the end of last year. He's been very critical of Trump and said that he would make a decision about running in April. And then New Hampshire Governor Chris Sununu also raised the prospects of a possible run this weekend, saying that it would be an opportunity to change things when asked by CBS whether he was considering a bid. In terms of Trump's polling results, he is at 42%. That's his favorability rating among registered voters, according to a Morning Consult poll released this week. And that is compared to DeSantis's 41% and Biden's 45%. So they are all really, as I said, polling very closely within each other.
Yeah, that's neck and neck. So how would you describe Trump's 2024 presidential bid so far?
So obviously he has faced a slew of controversies since announcing his run. The Trump Organization was convicted of tax fraud for falsely inflating assets, in a bid to secure loans. He was heavily criticized following the GOP's worse than expected midterm performance that left them with, a slim majority in the House. He backed many candidates who, had losses in consequential high-profile races. And then, of course, there's the controversial dinner that he hosted with white supremacist Nick Fuentes and Kanye West at Mar-a-Lago, which produced a lot of criticism from prominent Republicans and, former Trump allies. His campaign announcement, which came a week after the midterm, was widely seen as sort of lackluster and lacking the energy of his typical rallies. And he's laid pretty low since then. In terms of fundraising, he brought in $9.5 million in the 6 weeks since announcing, which is less than he raised in the 6 weeks prior. So, there's a lot. It's very early. I do want to say that, the race appears to be off to a sluggish start, but the first major candidate to jump into the 2016 GOP primary race, when obviously was an open primary, was Ted Cruz, and he announced his campaign in March 2015, while Trump announced in June. So there's still a bit of time, and DeSantis, the Florida legislative session ends in May, so it's unlikely that he will announce before then.
Why are people waiting? Obviously, Nikki Haley, as you and I are sitting here, is the only major contender that has put her hat in the ring against Trump. You said Pence, Pompeo, DeSantis, Tim Scott, just to name a few. These are huge names, but these people haven't announced. So were they hesitant to open themselves up to attacks to Trump? Why, or do you think Nikki Haley's announcement will sort of open the floodgates here?
I think that there is a lot of speculation. A number of Democratic strategists, very reliable people in the political world, have been quoted saying that they think it's, a smart strategy to wait and not open themselves up to attacks by Trump. But he seems to be very focused on DeSantis. We've heard him publicly refer to Ron DeSantis as Ron DeSanctimonious, and he's really hit him hard for his pandemic policies, which were widely deployed by governors all across the country in terms of, closures and shutdowns. And privately, the New York Times had a very interesting story this weekend that in private circles, Trump is referring to DeSantis as Shutdown Ron and Meatball Ron in an apparent reference to his appearance. So, I would say that Trump's ruthless attack style, it certainly makes sense that would be a deterrent for early candidates. But there are a number of other factors at play. There's speculation that candidates are waiting to see what happens with the various potential criminal charges that could be filed against Trump. The DOJ reportedly has said they have evidence to charge him with obstruction in regards to his handling of documents at Mar-a-Lago and what they say was a failure to comply with their subpoena there. And then Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, his office has reportedly convened a grand jury that is currently deliberating whether to charge him in connection to the payments made to adult film star Stormy Daniels during the 2016 presidential campaign in exchange for her silence about their alleged affair. So there's, I think, a wait and see approach there. And, one additional factor is that Trump and DeSantis they're dominating the polls now. And I think that since the midterm elections, that trend has not wavered, and it may have cooled the heels of a lot of people who were considering running previously. Ted Cruz, for example, Senator Ted Cruz said today that he would be running for re-election to the Senate in 2024. And just several months ago, he was considered a possible contender.
Trump has 3 nicknames for Ron DeSantis, so obviously he thinks he's the most viable contender, and that's what polls are suggesting as well. Sara Dorn, thank you so much.
Thank you, Brittany.